Major League Journeymen, we took a little break, didn't we? We needed a little health sabbatical, but you know what? I got Dax to show up, I got Gordo to show up, and we're all here for this episode. We're talking vibes. We're talking opposite ends of the spectrum. We got TST and how high we were there, pun intended, and also we got vibes with the U.S. men's national team. There are a lot of personalities, heavy hitters that are speaking about this, and hopefully the conversation is going to continue. Let's chop it up. Major League Journeyman! It's been a minute. God, it feels good to say that, though, and to be joined by my two handsome co-hosts, Dax, fresh off a little dalliance. Dax, we're going to have to address you maybe walking out on the pod, once a journeyman, always a journeyman, just testing the waters out there with our former friend Taylor Twellman.
You guys are boring me a little bit. You guys are boring me a little bit.
We'll touch on this. I understand we haven't recorded in a couple weeks. Maybe there was some, some hesitation, a little apprehension about what's going on.
It's a lot of flirtation.
There's a lot of flirtation happening right now.
Your boy is sought after. Your boy is sought after.
All of a sudden, Gordo and I leave for 1 week just to go to TST, and Dax just runs right out the door. It's unbelievable. I feel like I'm walking into a single parenting relationship right now. I gotta just parent Gordo.
I'll never walk
by
out
myself
on the kids.
now. I'm not thrilled about it. Gordo, we got half of Gordo. We have his face, and maybe 1.5 or 3/4 of Gordo. We got his face and his mustache. I don't know how much of his voice we're gonna get because Gordo was on an absolute epic run at TST. So I want to start with TST because yours truly was able to experience it for the first time. The third time was the charm for me. I missed year 1, missed year 2. I did get the late call up one when Dax declined the invite. I got the call up for the Sneaky Fox fam. I took full advantage. I took my 5-year-old Julius, newly minted 5-year-old, who was an absolute just lunatic, as to be expected. And I took my oldest, Felix, my oldest boy, and got more autographs than I think he knew what to do with. I mean, just the wide-eyed wonder that he got to experience from the amount of curse words he heard on a sideline was pretty epic. But Gordo, in particular, was, for my money, and this is usually the case, absolute MVP. Walked away with the MVP. I still don't know how. I think Gordo literally just got home like 8 minutes ago, and it's Wednesday, and the tournament ended 2 days ago. So, Gordo, are you fully functioning at this point, or are we going to need to work with you here? Give me just a quick yes or no.
No.
Oh my God, dude, that voice. You sound like an 87-year-old smoker. Like, did you just get a larynx transplant?
Buddy, hey, listen, I left it all on the field. Every little bit of it, man.
The proverbial field, aka the bar.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we know about TST is,
oh my God, you sound awful.
Shut up. Can I talk?
Yes.
You guys want me here or not?
Okay. Yeah, let's go with may you talk, because you definitely can't talk. Yeah, yes, you may. Go.
Well, listen, I told guards this before. Every year is different. It's just like an MLS season. Every single one. You can have the majority of your locker room stay. You add a few new pieces, and the whole thing changes. And you can't want this year to be like last year or the year before, because it never will be. We'll never have the first year ever again. It was the best year. It's always going to be the best. The first is always the best. It's always the one you remember.
Can I push back on that a little bit?
Yeah,
how can you say that? What if you guys win TST next year?
It was still the best.
It's still the first. It's always the first.
It's the first.
Yeah.
It's the first.
But you didn't win.
First. You never, look, I don't want to get too graphic, but we know what I'm talking about. Okay.
I do want you to get graphic here, Gordo. Why are you stopping from getting graphic?
When you feel it for the first time, it'll never be the same.
It just tastes so good when it touches your lips.
time is just like, whoa, I'm in love.
The first time you ever took a sip of beer, right?
Yes. First time for anything,
Okay,
and you let your imagination go. But there can be a better year, but it'll never be the same or as magical.
That's fair. Fair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I went in last year. Gargs came in with his kids. He was experiencing it. His kids are a little bit younger, so he had to be with them all the time. So he didn't get to experience the nightlife piece of TST. Last year, I did that. And I was in, I didn't go party. So this year, I was like, I'm going out and I'm going to go change some lives. I'm going to go have some conversations. I'm going to go have some drinks with some guys. And we did, and it was beautiful, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like it was amazing. I gotta say, I feel, before we get to Gargs' experience, I just want to say I'm bummed I missed it. I did get invited to go with Sneaky Fox, and as you guys know, I've been dealing with a lot. I got a big move. I had a big move down to Florida. I was talking to McGee all the way up to it. Maybe I can do it. Maybe I can't. But your boy was packing up a whole house. Your boy was driving in a U-Haul, cruising down south twice, not once, but twice. I did this 2 separate times in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
I unloaded both U-Hauls into storage because our house is under construction right now. So listen, before you give me crap, I really wanted to be there. I told McGee, like, just give me a chance to the last minute to maybe go. And I couldn't pull it off. And I'm bummed because I really want to go. I will go. Mark my words. I will be there eventually. But I see the videos. I see the posts. I see the stories, and it just, man, it pulls at the heartstrings. It looks like so much fun, not just from Sneaky Fox, but from friends that I have, like Concafa, watching Breck score game winners and the celebrations, right? Even Bumpy Pitch, man, like, been rocking Bumpy Pitch for like 20 years. And just shout out to them for first year in the tournament, and they ended up winning. That's really impressive. And a women's team that I think made the final.
They didn't
really
beat
cool.
Sneaky Fox, though.
No?
They did not.
Smashed. But anyways, I just wanted to say it looked like a blast. I will be there very soon. Gargs, how was your experience, man?
For clarity's sake, of the 3 nights that I was there, I still was out until 2:00 in the morning, and I also probably would grade myself in the nightlife at like a C- compared to the effort that Gordo gave. So just so we're putting a spectrum on this intention and what was actually delivered.
We're talking about a generational run from Gordo, it sounds like.
It was honestly like I couldn't believe some of the things that I was seeing with having the amount of small children that were in attendance, both with the last name of Gargan and Gordon. It was pretty impressive. Somebody similar to the pod has to be the responsible adult in the room. I took on that mantle because I did have a 5-year-old that realistically would have ended up hitchhiking his way back to the hotel had I let him. But it was. I think Gordo hit the nail on the head. You and I both, Dax, have been listening to these stories about what has been, right? And I think that what I saw was, for me, you walk in and everybody's got a couple things. One, they have a preconceived notion of what is to be expected, right? Because of the history. There's also history and different levels of history. So like for Sneaky Fox in particular, for every other team, they have guys that have been there for 1 year, guys that have been there for 2 years, and guys that have been now and are brand new. So you have all these different levels of like expectations, and you have a really small window to bring a group together to make sure that this is your team. So like it took me straight back into preseason of, the little snacks lined up and the piles of water and the Gatorades and everyone's kind of in and out of the training room and the banter and all these things about the highs and the lows of what that does for you. And there was so much magic around it. It was really incredible. And it probably took me maybe like 36 hours to really kind of get into it. And the build up into it is like, you're on this tech chain, right? With probably 30 people. So like the staff and all the players. And like everybody's flying in and the text, I mean, Gordo, what would you say? Like averaging 500 texts a day, easy,
It's
of
a
just
little
everybody
stressful.
like
Yeah.
throwing thoughts
Oof.
and like jokes and inside jokes and outside jokes and everything. And you're like, how do you jump in here? Like, where do you get in? It's almost like double Dutch.
Should I
It's like
mute
double
this?
Dutch with 14
Yeah.
ropes. And you're like, okay, I'm going to time this thing. And then, ultimately you just got to jump in. Right. So we got there and it was probably, it's hard to say that it was everything that you had hoped it would be, because it wasn't what I had built up and okay, this is what I'm expecting. But there's also these like moments where you walk down and you're kind of, I was wandering around where it first hit me was I'm wandering around the fields and the whole setup at Wake Med Park. So there's like fields going on and you hear the cheers and you hear the roars and it's like the middle of the afternoon and you're seeing people and getting everybody high fives and it's like faces, from 10 years ago to 10 minutes ago. And then I walked down the stairs and I saw Pat McAfee's full broadcast booth set up. So it's him and 5 guys, all the lights, the big stage, everything is all there and the game's going on behind and you got all these screens and all these people watching. And it was that moment where it was like, oh, there's some magic here. This is really fucking cool. And like all the stands are, packed and you're watching. And I think it was like Club America versus Puebla or somebody. And the game is like a million miles an hour. And it was in that moment where it was like, okay, I see it. I see the magic. I get it. And then we played our first game right after that. And you walk out on the field and like you see the kids running around and it's blending the idea of professional, like the professional game, the professional aspect and the pageantry of it with this, you can have your 5-year-old run across the field while Pat McAfee's interviewing, Mike McGee. And it's like, this is a cool marriage between two things. So all in all, I had a really good time. I did.
Can I ask a question, Gargs? And
of
I
course.
apologize in advance. Did you play? Were you on the field?
No, I didn't.
Why
But
not?
I did because I have 2 hernias right now, which are not good. Not good. Not 1, 2.
2 dragons.
But I did sit and I did watch, and I think for me, like I wanted to see it because I am 42, and I was like, would I actually still be able to jump into this fast lane? And I walked away wanting to play. I walked away and I was like, you know what? I would actually like to get fit to see if I could do this or to just experience it for the 3 days. And there's probably 95% of me that would ultimately end up getting hurt, but it almost felt worth trying.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'll ultimately get there for next year and be fit enough to do it. But I think that me walking away, I was like, yeah, I think I kind of want to play again. I mean, just like seeing the ball just move around, and it was it was PTSD and also just a love affair that just kind of it cloaks you, dude. You get wrapped up in it.
Gordo, let me throw you something because you've been there. You've been there all 3 years. I heard one of my Apple cohorts, Mr. Lloyd Sam. He was talking about the differences between, I think, the different iterations of the tournament, and he said that this year felt like it was a lot more serious, a lot more aggressive, more intense. Like more fouls, more duels, like maybe a little bit like teams are like, dude, we're really going for this because it's not just a piss take, right? And it never was. I don't think it was, but people were trying to figure out like how serious do we take this? And Lloyd was kind of like, dude, I saw some crazy stuff going on the field. And so before we move on to US men's national team stuff, just kind of like first of all, how did Sneaky Fox do? And then just a quick kind of overview of what your thoughts are on like if it got way more serious this year.
It did, and that's why it was so different, because the first year, as you said, why it was magical for us is because we still on Sneaky Fox, we still had like Chris Winger, and we had, I can't remember all these names. We had the guys that we played with, but are like over 40 or 40 years old. They can still do it, but it was a little different. And now you have actual professional teams that are they go after bags, and they travel around all year just for these tournaments, and this is what they train for. And this game specifically is unique, and so you get a bunch of these tiki taka teams, these Hispanic teams.
It's what they've been doing their whole lives, and they're very good at it.
And they're very good at it. And so it just you go on the practice fields and you look around in the eye test and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
These guys are ready for war.
Dude, nobody's there to fuck around anymore. And that's like, I think that was somewhat of the vibe before, was everybody would go out and have beers all night, and then they'd show up to the fields. And at some point you would hit that competitive space where you're like, all right, I'm shaking off the cobwebs and I want to win. And there's an element of competition. This was not that. This was, you're showing up to the field, you're locked in. These guys, everybody was locked in, and with a firm grasp of, I want to win so that we win cash. It was very clear that was the objective.
And I think McGee put together a really good squad. We had a good squad. I think we could have won. I think we beat the eventual winners. Our first 2 games we were on fire, and then so the vibes are high, guys are feeling good. Then the third game, the next day, we got smashed, and there's those highs and lows. And so we had to have a team talk.
Love that.
We got to have a team talk, like everybody at 9 p.m. and we go around the room. And I talked about this before. And it was it's the most magical moment of all time, because everybody there we have to become a family in 5 days.
Yeah.
5 days, right? And all these other teams, they know each other. They've been training for a month, some of them. And so we go around and we say 2 things, like, what is your motivation for being here? And what was the other one, Gargs?
What are you bringing to this team? And who are you playing? Why are you playing? Who are you playing for? What are you playing for?
Guys got so deep, dude, that it was almost like we're in tears, dude. And it changed people. Like, you could see their eyes changing. Some guys weren't getting playing time. They're pissed. And then when you bring the human element into it, we became a team in that moment.
Yep.
We end up losing the next game, but that was the special moment for me.
Yeah.
And then after, it was all hugs and all love. And anytime I see those guys who we didn't know 80% of them, because they're all indoor guys, now they become your brothers. I'll hug them anytime I see them, and they'll do the same, And so that is the magical stuff that the tournament brings. So
can we start naming that moment, because I feel like you're going to have one every year, the Pablo Mastroeni vibes circle.
Exactly. And so that was really cool, man, to listen to people's stories, and everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different relationship with the game, whether you had a good career or whether you're still grinding to make it. And then you infuse everything, and it just becomes beautiful, man. It was cool. Very cool.
Love that.
The human element was the level set, which was really cool. It was really cool to be a part of. You're sitting around in that room, which, Dax, you're a lot closer to it than both Gordo and I have been in a little bit. But, like, you got a couple guys chewing on bananas, some guys foam rolling, some guys are, messing with their phones. And then all of a sudden, like, people start talking about real shit and why they've decided to leave their families for a week. Gordo brought his family and also left his family for a week at the same time, which was interesting. But Gordo's spot on, dude. It completely flipped the room, and it was awesome. It was a real unifier. So.
Who could use that? You know who could use that? You know who could use that, Guards? Is the U.S. men's national team.
I do. That was a lovely transition, Dax. Do you think that we could?
TV.
You think we could get Eddie Johnson, Clint Dempsey, and Landon to sit down and tell everybody why they're here and who they play for?
Let's get Christian as well, and his dad. Let's
Christian's dad
in there.
Mark,
why not?
Mark, do you think we could get Mark on the pod?
We would love that.
Let's chat about the U.S. men's national team, because my goodness, there's quite a few layers of nuance here, isn't there? was interesting to have Martino. He was in for a couple days before they headed in, before he headed into to camp in these like send off matches. But I mean, calling a spade, not a good place that this national team is in. And I think that we're wading into territory. It kind of has like, at this point, it's got some 94, 98 vibes to it, because now I feel like we're seeing this infighting from the alumni who are calling each other out and pointing fingers, and the passive aggressive kind of shade, which is really interesting to me. These are obviously our contemporaries that we played alongside and lived some of those like years with, that are making passing judgment and commentary on it. It does feel, my perception, it feels very much like an old man telling the young kids to get off his lawn, which is, this is probably more of my take on Landon.
Well, I'm curious. Well, just so everyone is aware, maybe I'm sure most people are that listen to our pod, but Landon pretty explicitly called out the players who are in Europe, who are playing at a really high level. Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, Gio Reyna, all these guys,
but not by name, right?
He didn't do it by name, right? But it was kind of out of the blue, right? He was covering Nations League, and it was like Portugal celebrating and Ronaldo crying, and he kind of just like threw it out there, right? And I'm just curious. You guys know Landon well. You guys played with Landon well. I obviously have my own thoughts on it. I've spoken about it a little bit, but you guys, the floor is yours, and kind of how you feel about what he did, how he delivered that message.
Let me go first, and then I think Gordo will probably have a layer on top of what I have to say. I haven't seen all the commentary, and I haven't seen like specific word for word back and forth. But I did see Landon's comments, and I think that Landon's comments were probably the sentiment that most people were feeling. I don't think that this was an out of context comment for somewhat of the disappointment of not seeing the Pulisics or the McKennies or the whatever, which is also built up because of their performances up to that date, right? Like a lot of it in my estimation was, this is thrown because our national team wasn't performing at a level that we expect of them. So now you get these comments from arguably the greatest U.S. men's national team player of all time that seem offhanded, that seem directed at maybe the future best U.S. men's national team player of all time, which in my mind, really, it's kind of odd because I see so many similarities between Landon and Christian in the way that they play, in the way that they lead the team, in the way that they don't really speak all that much to the media, to having significant opinions on one side of the fence or the other. And now this, Landon, I know that Landon is an incredibly intelligent man. Certainly missed, or maybe he didn't miss, but understands the weight of his words and the weight of when he speaks, and he has an assessment on this, how impactful that is. What I guess I was surprised to see is that being public. And maybe Landon at this point is so far removed from it that he's somewhat grasping for a spotlight, or feels the need to comment, or does have a real connection still to the U.S. men's national team, and a disappointment, which I think a lot of people are commenting on. But yeah, I didn't think it was a great look for Landon. I thought it was I was disappointed. I was disappointed in the way that he approached it, because I probably would tend to agree with Christian's dad, as in, if I think it would have been a lot more impactful for Landon to say, hey, I would have liked to have seen Christian and Weston and whoever else come to this event because of the state of the U.S. men's national team. But when you go passive aggressive on it and you don't really specify what you're actually saying, it leaves a lot for interpretation. And now you have everybody else that is filling that void. And it's only made things worse.
I hear what I agree with you, but all I have to say is I don't mind him speaking up. And I think you're saying the same thing. You just said why, but he could probably look back in hindsight's 2020 and say, yeah, I probably should have said it the way that you just said. But he said it live. And it was his true emotions, because he's watching Ronaldo win and cry, like Dak said, and have that spirit of the national team that we are desiring right now. Everybody. So if Landon is not going to say it, I don't think he's not looking for the spotlight. He's not. Landon will stay silent as long as he needs to, and we need him, and we need Clint, and we need these guys to speak up, because they are the only voices that matter. You and I can say whatever we want and how disappointed we haven't been there, dude. We haven't done that. We haven't worn their shoes. We haven't had the schedules that they have. Landon did it for a very long time. Now, him and Christian, Eddie Johnson comes out and he backs up Christian. I liked what Eddie said. He said it in a respectful way. I liked most of the things that Eddie said. At the end of what Eddie said, I liked it. He's always going to be pro Europe and do his thing. But why? I want Christian to be healthy in the World Cup. I want him to get some break. He's had a long season, so I don't mind what Christian is doing either. You know, like, I'm not saying Christian and McKennie should be out there, but the bottom line is we changed our coach too close to the World Cup. They went ahead and made a bad decision in their eyes because they fired Greg. They shouldn't have rehired him if they weren't going to let him go all the way. And then they fire him, and now we are screwed because Pochettino, he's trying to build a roster in 1 year. He doesn't know any of our players. He doesn't know our player pool. So now he's thinking, okay, I know who those guys are. I need to go find some other guys. So let's get those guys some rest, and let's get some other guys some minutes. It didn't work out because we're not deep, obviously. And these guys that came in, they failed. And now everybody's criticizing these guys for not coming over. It's not their fault. I understand both sides, but what I'm saying is I am glad that Landon said what he said, because he has to say it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Gordo, I do think you're right. I think that we do need for him to speak. What is probably, I think, what is maybe causing more concern from me is that he hasn't clarified his comments. Like, he's got a podcast. He's got more than enough of a megaphone to. I bet
you he clarifies that really soon.
He's going to have to, right? Yeah. But I also think some of the challenge here, though, in taking some of the criticism from Landon is he did the same thing. He walked away from the game and took a break. So, and that's probably what he will comment on. Maybe that's why he is saying what he's saying. I don't know, but maybe that's why he's saying, "Hey, looking back on it, maybe I shouldn't have taken a break." I don't know. I don't.
But hold on. Let me ask you a question, because were either of you guys there on the Galaxy when Landon took his sabbatical? Okay.
Gordo was.
Let me ask you a question, right? Because this is, I think, a big point of contention, and this is what Christian's dad was saying, right? Hey, pot calling the kettle black, right? Like, this is not appropriate because you did the same thing. I just wonder, right? Christian, if Christian's got some mental health stuff going on that we don't know about, you know, fair enough, and he wants to take a break, but he's not saying that, fine. If it's physical, fine. He's come out and kind of said in no uncertain terms he needs a break physically, right? Landon, you guys know this, right? Like, this is not like some big secret. He was having some serious mental health stuff going on, right? So Landon, whether he was tired physically, mentally, he acknowledged, hey man, like I was having some real mental health issues going on. I was depressed. I needed to walk away from the game. And you know, I might be wrong, but in no uncertain terms, I think he was actually considering just walking away from the game altogether.
He was.
Let me ask you. So let me ask both of you: is that not different? Surely it's different than what Pulisic is doing.
Exactly. It's not the same. It is
I'm
not
really
the same.
curious what the face is with Gargs.
Yeah,
Well, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead, Gordo.
Let me address. You're right, Dax, and that's what I was going to say, dude. It's not at all the same. So they can't come out and say, "Oh, Landon, you did the same thing." No,
Thank you.
Landon won in 2014, and he was going to walk away because he was having those things. What brought Landon back?
That was earlier. It was earlier. It was 2000 and...
It was 2012 going into 2013.
Oh, and he came back and won. So he was going to walk away because he said, "Listen, I'm not just taking a break from the national team. I'm going to play my MLS season." He took a break. Like
he was gone. He didn't even play for the Galaxy.
He retired. And so he said, "This is what I need." And what brought him back is he had a kid. He had a child. And he looked at the child and he said, "I really want this kid to know me as a soccer player and have him on the field." He said that. And that's what brought him back, because the kid helped him.
Are you getting your timelines confused here, Gordo?
I don't think he retired.
He took a sabbatical at the end of 2012 going into 2013. I think he missed 3 months, right? He went over to like Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
He did his
whole
whole thing.
That was after the season. It was in between seasons. But I think you're right. You're at Gordo. You're on the right page.
Either way. He
did step away.
He walked away. He's not just taking a vacation. When Landon was playing, he always showed up for the national team when he was called in. And that's,
I think and this is my point. There are some differences, right? And so my biggest issue here, guys, and I've talked about this quite a bit, right? So I don't want to go too long because there's so much nuance and there's so much context that's involved in this discussion, right? It's not a cut and dried issue because I see both sides of it. But at the end of the day, like, I think the communication from Christian Pulisic and his camp has been poor, because the national team, when they announced the roster, they had to put out a separate statement addressing Christian Pulisic's camp reached out to us and said he needs a break. Pochettino wanted to call him in.
Dude, Christian Pulisic is a world superstar. Landon Donovan was not a world superstar. He wasn't.
And that means Christian.
There's a different level of pressure. I'm going to say two things that are probably competing statements. But I will say that I probably disagree with the idea that they're not the same, because I do think that, and this is mental health, maybe as a whole. I don't think it's fair to characterize one person's mental health in the same vein as somebody else's mental health.
But that's what Dax is saying. We don't know if it's mental health.
Christian hasn't communicated that.
I know that. Hold on. Let me get to my point. My point is, and you guys know this, every professional athlete deals with mental health issues. Every single one. Every single one of us deal with, are we good enough? Can we do this? Should we continue to put ourselves through this? Every single day. Every day. So and this is not to discredit the place that Landon was in or the depth or whatever. They're all different. Everybody's journey, everybody's hurdles are different. But everybody does go through that in feeling some of those things. And to be there are different levels. This is probably going to sound wrong, but I think that there are different levels of privilege to be able to step away from the game for 3 months. Well, I'll speak personally. I never felt like I had the opportunity to take 2 minutes off. Walker Zimmerman said something last night that I think Bees commented on afterwards. He said, we don't need to, or nobody's going to get judged for 45 minutes of soccer. And Bees called it out after Walker walked away, but he said, that's not accurate. 45 minutes might be the only 45 minutes that you ever get. I lived that for my entire career. Every pass that I made, I felt like I got judged on it. And there are players, as we both know, Walker Zimmerman is one of those players that probably doesn't get judged for every 45 minutes that he plays. He gets a pass because he is an excellent player and gets a pass for some of those stinkers that he throws out, which we all do. I never lived in a place like that. Landon was a different layer of having an ability to say, yeah, I'm going to take 3 months and I'm going to go to Southeast Asia and I'm going to figure myself out. Yeah. There are literally thousands of players that couldn't even comprehend that idea as a professional soccer player. And what I'm saying is, Christian, the fact that he has a camp that puts out statements is a whole nother layer of superstardom, pressure, all of it, all this big ball of layers of what you're talking about, Dax. And I think that they are comparable while being worlds and oceans apart.
So I agree, but at the same time, here's where my issue comes in. Because if Christian Pulisic is tired, I don't have an issue. He's had injury problems in the past. I don't, in a vacuum, I don't have a problem with him saying, look, I need a break and I don't want to go in. Here's where it's difficult for me, Dan, because this is going to speak directly to your point. Us three, our podcast is called Major League Journeymen. We were journeymen. We were all really good players in different ways. But Dan, you just said you always had to prove yourself. You felt that. I felt the same thing. So I cannot put myself in Landon's shoes. I cannot put myself in Christian Pulisic's shoes because I never had the luxury to do what he is doing. Every time I got called into the U.S. men's national team, it was live or die for me. It was, this is my moment. This is my opportunity. And you know what? I don't even have even a quarter of the talent that Christian Pulisic has. Okay. So I felt that I needed to go in there and I needed to do everything I possibly could. I would have gone into 100 consecutive camps, even if it meant I didn't get a vacation, just to wear the U.S. men's national team crest, because I knew it was really finite. I knew that I was not an important part of that team. I knew that I was going to be a vibes guy. I was going to be a depth guy. I was never going to be a superstar like Christian Pulisic is. Yeah. So here's where generally my thoughts feel. I think Christian Pulisic cares about the national team. I think he cares about this country deeply. Yeah, he spoke about that. He spoke about that after the loss to Panama. He was very emotional. He was almost in tears, saying the question was something kind of like people are questioning this team. People are questioning if the team even cares about representing the national team, right? And he said, yes, unequivocally, we care. We love this country. We love this national team. Representing the national team is everything to me. But guys, actions speak louder than words. If there was not, and I say this loud and clear, if there was not the biggest World Cup of our lifetime, let me rephrase that, probably the biggest World Cup of all time, with 3 countries in the biggest country, in the most important country in the world, the most important World Cup, the most eyeballs on it, in our backyard. If that was not happening, and this was 2 years away or 3 years away, and Christian missed the Gold Cup and he missed a couple friendlies, I don't care, whatever. The problem is the U.S. men's national team sucks right now. The best players are the best players, and they have gotten complacent. They have gotten entitled because they know what we just saw last night in Nashville is exactly what's behind them, and the depth is not good enough, and they are not going to be challenged. They are not going to be challenged. Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, Christian Pulisic, their spot on the national team, just purely based on their talent alone, is secure, and the players behind them are frankly not good enough, and Pochettino has a big problem. The depth isn't good enough, as we've seen for the last 3 or 4 games, and then the star players feel like they need to get rest and vacation, and they don't have to come into the Gold Cup because it's not important in the camp. Well, guys, we don't have World Cup qualifying. We don't have any important games after the Gold Cup. They're all friendlies. So I just wonder, is there not a balance? Like, was there not a balance to where all these players could have come into camp and they could have talked to Pochettino and they could have been there to continue to grow and get his tactics and bond? And maybe Christian doesn't play every game. Maybe he doesn't start any games. Maybe he's on the bench for a game. Maybe he starts one game. Maybe he plays in the group stage in the Gold Cup, but then he takes 5 weeks off. I don't know. But was there not like some happy medium where he at least could have been there and said, look, I'm 12 months out from the most important World Cup of my lifetime, of this team's lifetime, and I really, really want us to be successful, and we're really bad right now, and we need to be a little bit better. I feel like there was some sort of compromise that could have been made there. That's where my issue is. Any other World Cup, any other cycle, any other moment in time, fine. We don't have any World Cup qualifiers, guys. If we had to qualify for this World Cup, would we even qualify? I don't know.
Yeah, and
I speak from experience of having in 2017 been in the locker room in Trinidad in our most embarrassing in our most difficult moment where we failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. And I know Christian. He's a great kid. And he was in the locker room crying because he was so upset as a 17-year-old because he bore the weight of that on his shoulders. And he was like, this career is short. I'm not going to have a ton of other opportunities to play in a World Cup. And he already has. But I just wonder if the U.S. men's national team has a great World Cup, this is all going to be forgotten about. No one's going to care. But if they don't, we're going to look back on this summer and say, was there an opportunity there for this team to maybe get out of this rut and to play a little better and to get a little cohesion? Because I got to say one thing. I was happy when Pochettino was hired. He looks like he is completely out of his depth. I was at the game, guys, in Nashville. It was an embarrassment. Tactically embarrassing. You had no pressure on the ball. Switzerland is a good European team. It was men versus boys. It looked like an MLS team, or it looked like a Champions League team playing against an MLS team. It was horrific. So look, sorry I went a little bit long there, but that's generally how I feel and where my thoughts are. I just wish this sense of entitlement and complacency could somehow be weeded out. But again, there's not good enough depth. We need these guys. We need our best players on the national team, or we're going to get embarrassed.
I think you both made two really good points. I think that it ultimately comes down to the communication. I think the communication across the board has been really poor. It wasn't good from Landon because he hasn't explained himself. It wasn't good from Pulisic because there's really no communication about why he's not there or what he's going through, which you are the face of this.
Again, Dan, that's the point. If he's injured, he needs to come out and say that because Anthony Robinson got knee surgery. So no one's putting Anthony Robinson in the same bucket because he came out and they said he needed surgery. If Christian, you guys know as well as I do, there's a difference between being injured and being hurt. We all played our whole careers hurt, okay? We all played, and none of us, again, ever played at the Champions League level, never played at Christian's level, so maybe his body is fragile and tired and all that. I understand, totally. I get it. But there has been no communication. So that's where I just wonder if there could have been something communicated a little better so all of this would not be that big of a deal.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think the communication from U.S. Soccer has been poor too. You have to, especially with the state of where things are, I think that all three could have been better. And I think, Gordo, you made an excellent point about essentially being on the sidelines for this conversation, because now we haven't walked in any of these guys' shoes, which is probably why it is as interesting as it is, because now you have a Landon that's decided to speak up. You have a Clint that's decided to speak up. You have an Eddie Johnson that's decided to speak up. So they now have entered the chat, which for us is, okay, great. Then let's hear what the actual feelings and thoughts are, which is where I think this seems to be trending, which is really interesting. So, Gordo, I want to ask you, what is your next step if you're Landon Donovan, and what are you going to say? Because I think that he is the one that needs to take another step now, because he's also been called out by two former teammates that walked that walk with him.
Yeah, Landon's super intelligent. He's good with his words. And so in that moment, we can agree that maybe those were not the best words that he could have used, because he was just dipping his toe into this conversation. He just said, basically on this 30-man text string, right, the Sneaky Fox, he just said, he said, hey, what's up? Like, I'm here. And so now he needs to clarify. And Landon will find, I can't speculate what he's going to say.
He's also going to have Tim Howard alongside of him with this conveison too, which will be interesting.
When he'll be a great voice as well. And we haven't heard from Tim. And I know Tim, I've listened to their podcast, and everybody has some feelings, but everybody's just towing the line, because how much can you say as the guy that was, and now you're not the old guy saying get off my lawn. And so
totally
they're caught in this weird space where they're like, how much do I really say here? And I think they need to tell their true feelings, you know.
But once you enter a volatile conversation, right? You can't just tiptoe in.
No, and he doesn't need to get in a spat with Christian's dad. He doesn't need to respond to him. No. His dad's going to protect him and all that kind of stuff. But he needs to just clarify and say exactly. I think Dax just said it really, really well, really well. This is when we need our guys, because
we need our best players right now. And let me ask you guys this, because I think this is a good way to look at it, right? If AC Milan was in the Club World Cup, would Christian Pulisic play?
Yes, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah, but the Club World Cup is different than meaningless send-off games.
Okay,
No,
I mean,
this is not meaningless. That's the whole point.
Again, that's my point, Dan. It's not every game. Every game from here to the World Cup isn't meaningless, even if it's a friendly, because it's important for these guys to play better.
I think here's the other side of that. Here's the other side of that. Consistently,
first of all, the Gold Cup is not meaningless.
I agree with you, but we have always approached, maybe not always, but pretty consistently approached the Gold Cup with a second tier layer of U.S. men's national team players.
Have we ever hosted a World Cup the next year in our backyard after a Gold Cup?
I don't know. Do we have a Gold Cup in '93? I don't know the answer.
I don't either. I'm just saying. My point is,
we didn't.
It is just a moment. And again, they don't have to play every game. They can rotate through it.
Every World Cup is very, very, very important. It is the most important thing that we do as a U.S. men's national team country, whatever. So to say that this one is any more important to these players, yeah, there's a different layer to it because it is in our home country. Yes, I'm acknowledging that. But every single World Cup up until that point is just as impactful to every player that puts a U.S. men's national team jersey on.
I disagree. I think a World Cup at home is way more important.
I played in two Gold Cups. Landon was on both squads, and I'm pretty sure you have the fact. I know that Tim Howard was in the first one that I was at. So these are two guys, and Tim was playing overseas.
Okay, Landon wasn't.
But he was.
Was Clint? Was Dempsey on both of those?
Clint was on one of two. Or maybe both. I don't know.
I see the other side of this thing.
But those were our guys, and they played. There were some guys overseas, and it is mainly a MLS heavy roster. But those were our guys, and they were playing. Plain and simple.
How about Cherundolo? Was he there?
No, there was guys left out. No, he wasn't.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they didn't call European-based players in, but I think that it's always been an opportunity to see how we're going to fill out the roster for the World Cup. It is the opportunity to see guys that step up and get the next chance. Right?
And that was the point that I made. Yes, I know. I get it. But Dax makes a really compelling argument.
Because of AC Milan.
Because of the state of our team.
Exactly. I wouldn't care. Again, Gargs, if we won Nations League, if we had a deep run in Copa America, if we won Nations League, I genuinely would. If our A team, if our best players, right, if they all were like on the same page in terms of results, in terms of every time we watched them play and they stepped out on the field, it was like, okay, I am not worried about the performance in the World Cup coming up because I know these guys will be ready. Let's get them some rest. That's not the case. Gargs, you can make an argument that the national team is in a worse place now than we were in 2017. It is catastrophically bad right now for our men's national team. And so that's where I fall in terms of like, hey, man, this is a short career, and you want to balance your health.
But what's the difference?
You want to balance your body. I get that. I totally get that. And I can't put myself in their shoes because I never played.
Insanity, Dax?
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
So if we keep bringing in the same 11 players that are playing like shit together, are we going to get a different result?
But Christian's not one of those guys.
No, Christian is not. You're right. You're right. But my point is, okay, maybe it is the time. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right to throw it all out and say, no, yeah, you're right. You guys stay the fuck out of here because our chemistry is off. The levels are wrong. All of this is wrong. It's been wrong for a while, and we never got it right. So go ahead, take your time, do your thing, get out of here. We're going to figure out how we're going to piece some of these things together because we have to find the Kyle Beckermans and the Pablo Mastroenis and the Dax McCartys that are going to piece in between Christian Pulisic. We know who the hell Christian Pulisic is.
I don't disagree with you, and this is more a federation problem. At the top of the federation is a joke.
I don't disagree with that.
So, you rehire Greg, to Gordo's great point earlier, you rehire Greg Berhalter, and then you fire him after a crap performance in the Copa America, and you bring in Pochettino, and now he has 15 games to get it right and to figure out who the depth is. it's just it's just pieced together. Like, so it's like, okay, well, we did this. We had our process for this. We had a couple tough moments. We're throwing it out. Gone. Now we have to restart the process all over again. And now, to your point, okay, well, our best players suck right now and they don't want to come in. They don't feel as much pride for the national team. That's what people are accusing them of. I don't believe that. But okay, they don't feel
believe
as much,
that either.
I don't believe that.
I don't buy that.
Okay, they don't feel as okay. So now they're actually telling us, our best players are actually telling us, no, we're going to take a break. We're going to go on vacation. And then U.S. Soccer is like, well, okay, people like Gargs, okay, we need to figure out who the depth is. Like we should have figured this out years ago. This is our golden generation, right? I mean, genuinely, we have 12. I don't think it is. I think we've overvalued and overrated this generation for years now. But I don't think
the doors to Europe are way more open than they ever have been.
It's like I said in the beginning of my tirade. There is so much context and nuance to this argument that it's impossible to have a right answer, right? Gargs, I disagree with a bunch of what you say, but you make some good points. I mainly agree with what Gordo's saying, and I think we all kind of have the same idea, but it all boils down to we can't put ourselves in the shoes of a Weston McKennie, of a Christian Pulisic, because we never played at their level. We were never as good as them. We never played as many games as them, and we all me and Gordo represented our men's national team, and it was the highlight of my career, one of the highlights of my life. So I can't sit there and understand, even if you're tired, why when your country calls you and your country needs you, you would then say, well, I just need a vacation. And yeah, it's an opportunity for other players to maybe fill out the roster. If it was with my mindset, the way I am, because I wasn't as good, I don't want anyone to be able to have an opportunity to come and take my spot. I don't want Diego Luna to get minutes behind me, because what if he balls out and he plays well? Our best players don't feel that.
Because they eat steak for dinner every night. And they are that is where they are. We need more guys that see that opportunity for the opportunity that it is, and they value it as such. I don't think that they I don't think that they discredit the opportunity to play for the U.S. men's national team, but they do it over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't mean the same thing. To Gordo's point, we started this thing. Your first cap is your first cap. It will never be the same ever again. And when you are having 50, however many caps they have, and you've gone in now to so many stadiums like Nashville. How many people were in Nashville last night, Dax? 100? 123? Yeah. Like it looked like there was nobody
sparse.
there.
Yeah, it was sparse.
So to leave AC Milan and to travel to Nashville to play a meaningless game against Switzerland, I'll call it meaningless. I know that it's not. I'm not. We're not going to go there. But I can understand where some of these guys are coming from. So I get it. We're not gonna fall on a resolution. I think that what I'm most excited about, and I would like to hear what you guys are most excited about. I am very excited, genuinely, to see how it plays out, because I think that there are a lot of really intelligent, important people that have to speak about this, and that have now forced the conversation onto us, which is a brilliant place to be, because if we go back to what the crux of this thing is, nobody is communicating in a great way. And now we have to communicate. Now we have to talk about it, because it looks like shit and it smells like shit and it actually is shit.
Yeah, it is.
Usually what happens.
Yeah. I hope that by putting all of it out on the table, we eventually put this behind us and the focus can just be on supporting Pochettino, because he needs to be better. Pochettino said as much. He said he didn't get it right last night, and he didn't. And he has to be better. And when our A team comes together and our best players come together and they start playing in these friendlies leading up to the World Cup, they can find some sort of magic, right? Because you guys know how sports are. You know how the game is. Like, 1 minute you're at the bottom of the mountain and you're in hell, you're in purgatory because shit has hit the fan and you're miserable, and you catch something. You find some moment of inspiration. A player makes a tackle, a goalkeeper makes a save, a guy scores a worldie, right? And you get a good win, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, it's like rocket fuel. You just take off and you find something that you didn't even know where it came from. I'm hopeful that our national team can do that, because Gargs, I just fundamentally disagree with you. I think every World Cup is amazing and important. A World Cup in your home country, where again, like I said, it's going to be the biggest sporting event in the history of the world, in the history of the universe, and it's in your backyard. It's in your backyard. I think there's something different about that. There's something different and special. And if you fall flat on your face playing in a World Cup down in Argentina or Brazil, then it sucks and you're going to get criticized, whatever. If you fall flat on your face in your backyard where you have a favorable group and you didn't have to qualify, it's going to hurt like nothing has ever hurt before, and it's going to be a massive failure. That's my only point when it comes to the home World Cup.
Dax, I agree with what you're saying. I think that this World Cup is more important than every other World Cup. My commentary was you're not going to be able to go to a Chris Wondolowski or a Kyle Beckerman or anybody else that played in a World Cup prior to this World Cup and have them tell you that was any less meaningful than the most impactful moment of their soccer life. So players and their mindsets that have headed into a World Cup, it's not any less than the defining moment of their career. It hasn't been up to that point. This is a different World Cup. It is the US. It is all those things. But all of the players' mindsets heading up to every World Cup is the defining moment of their lives up to that point. That's my point. Gordo.
Agreed. But
wrap it up.
But it is bigger to us, and that's why everybody's freaking out, because it's not going to be bigger for the players. World Cup's a World Cup. I agree with you, but the weight of this World Cup is what is different. And so, just like you said, you fall, like Dax said, you fall on your face here, it's going to be a lot different. All I'm saying is, I'm glad these guys got the conversation going, because we need them to. I'm scared that they're not going to be able to make a difference, because whatever they say, there's no words that can change what's going on inside that locker room with this team. And we've put this team in a very, very vulnerable state with changing Pochettino. Pochettino's got it sorted out, and he doesn't have a lot of games to do it. And so, I'm really nervous. I'm really nervous and I'm really pissed. I hope they catch lightning, like Dax said. So I'm not going to just throw it out and say they're going to suck. I'm hopeful, but I'm really, really nervous of what's going to happen next year.
I'll go on record. There's absolutely no way that they are going to suck in the World Cup next year. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Clip that, baby. Jack, we got Statman Jack. He's going to clip that.
I
love it, Gargs. I love it. That's like thing on the table type stuff. I love it.
Yeah, thing on the table. On the table. What I will say is I think you guys are right. I think the weight of this conversation will make its way into the locker room, and that's where it needs to go. It will ultimately get there. If Mark Pulisic is weighing in on this, it will get into the locker room, and they will have to have these conversations, because Pochettino also can't afford to let this be a black mark on his career either. Because if you're right, Dax, if they go and throw an absolute stinker on home soil, Poach might not be getting hired again. It might be a long road back for him. So listen, fellas, excellent conversation. I'm glad we all took a mental health break and stepped away from our game here, because look at what it did for us. It delivered one of the best performances of our lives. So well done. Dax, I hope you're rested. I hope you didn't lift too many boxes. Gordo, good luck getting yourself back in the good graces of your wife and the rest of your family. And I will see you both later. Adios, Journeymen.